how you're doing. It's an absolutely gorgeous day. Just in case you don't believe me. Look at that. Beautiful. I'm feeling great. I've slept. Weird that, but plans have changed. I was supposed to be going bowling with the boys today. You think, yeah, it feels like plans have changed. I'm sure I was asked to go bowling with the boys, and I'm sure I said yes. But the boys aren't here. They've gone out with Nanny bowling. Which isn't a bad thing. Just, it would have been kind of cool to go out with the boys. However, it ties into the whole I don't like telling my boys off when we're supposed to be doing something fun groove. And they've been kind of hammering on each other all day. Like, I gotta throw out that this isn't like hardcore, like, wow, what do you mean they've been shouting obscenities at each other and beating up each other, like fighting each other? No, just normal stuff. But when you kind of go, hang on, someone always tends to get the arse about it, and it kind of ruins the groove. So, like, you could say, look, come on, man, stop being a dick. It's like, oh, I'm not being a dick. It's like, well, you are, and then it's irrelevant. But, like, I have one son who has this groove where he expects you to know everything that's in his head. I mean, both of my boys do, in the grand scheme of things. My eldest son expects you to be able to read his bloody mind. So if he's feeling bored, depressed, you know, lonely, happy, whatever, he expects you to know, kind of thing, right? My youngest son is a cocky bellend, right? But he expects you to know everything to the same level as him or greater, whether or not you have any experience of the thing that he's rabbiting on about. You know, they assume like that everyone else has the same interests as them. My youngest son seems to think that if he's like, I don't know, 300 hours of proficiency in this thing, he expects someone who's had 3 minutes to have the same knowledge of UI and all that as he does. And it's like, so when his brother is like, you know, how do I do this? Like, what are you talking about? Like, the youngest will go, do this. And he'll be like, how do I do this? And he'll be like, oh, God. You gotta press the and my eldest is still like, I still don't know what you're talking about. And my youngest is like, oh my God, why am I doing this? Like, but he doesn't understand that we don't understand because we haven't put in the time, we don't have the experience, we haven't practiced. It'd be like me handing them a guitar and going, there you go, do shit. Or handing them a camera, there you go, do shit. You shouldn't make assumptions of people's skills. And my eldest son, realistically, he doesn't want aggro. He's kind of like me in that respect. He just can't be bothered with aggro. So they butt heads a lot. And they have been butting heads today. And I guess for the sake of my sanity, my mum has just decided that she'll take the boys bowling instead of me, which feels like a right cop-out, to be fair. But as long as they have fun, that's cool, I guess. They're just dickheads to each other. They can't help it. They're chalk and cheese. This is what they do. I should probably throw out there, right, that whilst my youngest son is an insufferable little sod rag, right, my eldest son's just as bad, but from another direction. He ignores you because he just doesn't listen to you. Right? He doesn't answer you. Like you think, well, you just said he ignores you, he doesn't answer you. That's the same thing. Well, no, because he does it for completely different reasons. And then out of nowhere, he'll just do something completely inappropriate. Do or say something just completely inappropriate, completely out of the blue, and you're like, right, okay, cool.
So both of my boys are they're a trial, and I love them. As a family unit, they make you go bald with stress. If you want to know how close you are to becoming a saint, stay out with my family for a bit. But I have this groove that's kind of the opposite from my youngest son, where he instantly assumes that everyone is at, the level of a nuclear physicist. I tend to sit on the opposite end of the spectrum in that, and it's actually quite bad really, because I tend to, I dumb myself down a lot. Like I dumb down everything I say as best I can, because I boil down something into its base concept, its base structure, and then as I talk to you, if you then go, so you mean it's like this, I'll then step up a notch, and then up a notch, until we find a comfortable level where we can have a decent conversation, and hopefully you'll leave feeling fulfilled from that conversation, that you've actually got something out of it rather than just wasting your time kind of thing. I don't see the point in talking to someone and have it just completely go over somebody's head. I understand that there are different levels of proficiency, but what's the old thing that if you can't describe something in its most simple form to a room full of people who have no idea what you're talking about, you clearly don't understand it well enough. Or like if you can't explain it's like a 5-year-old, you clearly don't understand it well enough. I have that kind of groove, and so I really tend to oversimplify a lot of the time. So I mansplain. I'm not trying to annoy people. It's just I don't assume that people know what I'm talking about, because if I do, then that can upset people because they think that I'm just like talking over someone, or they feel stupid or something like that. I'd rather start from the bottom and then figure out in stages where to go from there. I like the idea of being able to take anything and be able to teach people enough of the basics to get them interested, to give them that hook to want to go and look up stuff themselves, to learn more themselves. If I can do that, I've hit the nail on the head. It's like yesterday with the capture-y stuff. I've been doing more of that today. I'm not going to go super hardcore into it, and frankly, I'm not actually entirely sure if I could describe it in a particularly simplified way, because there are a lot of things that I screw up. But the colour stuff that we were doing yesterday with off the shelves, if anyone's curious as to where that has gone, decided to hook up an adapter to my Zephyrus G14 running Windows, hook that into a capture card, and hook that up to my telly. Right. Straight to the telly, standard image. To the telly through a capture card, looks pretty much the same, right? Hooked up to the telly, only output into the telly through the capture card. Again, they're looking pretty much the same. So I tried booting up Linux on the Zeph. The colour tinge was there. Linux just clearly isn't that happy. I don't know what it is, because I haven't done anything with it. It's just the default. They work, so it's not a problem with the capture card, so that's figured out. It's just on the off chance that I do plug in some exotic item and come up with a problem, now I'll have a better understanding of potentially how to fix it. So far though, I'm just going to assume that it's Linux. Oh, what a day. I got a call from my mum. Boys are done or finishing bowling. Had a good time. Is the arcade machine up and running? No, as in it's not plugged in. In theory, yes, I just need to plug it in, but it has been shifted a bit since last we used it. And, well... oh dear. We have a problem. The downside is, though, I don't want to do repair work on a CRT. It's been a long time since I've worked on this machine, and pretty much everything I have on this machine, I have no idea where I've stashed it. Where I've put it, like, you know, board layouts and things like that. That's not that big of a deal, but the CRT itself isn't... When you look stuff up on arcade cabinets, you generally find, like... I can't even think of the correct technical terms at this point, but you find older CRTs, right? This comes from this weird hybrid state where this thing has two states on it, and if you try and run regular kit through it, it tends to go no, because the monitor is usually, it's like a higher, was it a higher refresh rate or a higher resolution or one of the two? I don't remember. It's something really silly. I'm talking completely out of my fucking ass at this point. But this runs on the higher. Most people set up run on the lower, and fuck me if I can remember how to change any of the stuff on the board. I would say, though, I quite like this machine. We got it for bits. We've got a few different arcade machines laying about that I really need to fix. Is that the anode on one of these is gone, I need to replace, but it's built on top of a Pi 2 jammer and a Raspberry Pi 3. So I've made a clone of the image. Just cross your fingers that software will do it, because I don't remember how to change any of the stuff on that monitor. And if I can help it, I really don't want to. But I've got a feeling, because of the way this has been pulled about, and I've just pulled some box lids and stuff out of it, something might have been pulled out. No, it's just as simple as a screwdriver and a soldering iron. No. Nope. No joy.
Oh. I do love me a puzzle. Just it's been a long time since I've done anything to that arcade cab. It's a virtual striker cab, but those aren't standard jammer dealios. They're, I believe, medium. The monitor is odd, because most jammer stuff is like standard res. Let's call it standard res. I could be just talking out my ass, right? And Virtual Striker is medium. Did I say that? Was that medium? Words are proving to be difficult right now. And so it's switchable, but out of the box it doesn't work. Like, it wouldn't work. If you connected it up to a jammer harness, it just wouldn't work. Plus, it's not color-coded for a jammer harness, so I had to do some jiggery pokery. Now, once upon a time, I used to hang around a bit on UK VAC, which is a UK arcade forum, but since I got the cabinet working, I kind of drifted away, and I don't know where any of my, like, had I been a brain box at the time and not been running on zero sleep, as is usually the case, I would have probably saved myself a lot of trouble on UK VAC, because I asked the guys, I was like, does anyone know what this cabinet is? We got it really cheap. It was gutted, and some bloke had tried to like do one of those PC jammer conversions, and it just didn't work. Like, it didn't work at all. Like, I'm surprised he even bothered with it. It was this horribly cobbled together thing that just, you'd launch it, the monitor wasn't set correctly, the res weren't set right. I think it was set to medium. It needed to be on the standard lower res. Everything was set wrong, and so I gutted the damn thing. And I went onto UK VAC, so I was like, I don't know what this cab was, but it's just like the guy's just taken the marquee and put like Mortal Kombat stickers and all stuff over it. had I been a bit more of a brain box, I'd have probably noticed it had like it just taped over Virtual Striker, and if you turned on the lights and pushed it, you can actually see the name of the cab through it. And oh yeah, it's a Virtual Striker cab, innit? Started kind of digging around, finding out that it's a medium res monitor and all that kind of stuff. Either way, it's not standard. So if I was to look up wiring stuff for the monitor, I'd be like, wrong. So like all the colours are different. The way that it has to be spliced into the harness is a bit different. Like the colours don't match up. If you looked at it, you'd think I'd wired it wrong. I haven't. Just the monitor was looking for a different kind of board, and it was one of the first CRTs I ever worked on too. So that was a victory in itself, because I'd always been a bit nervous around CRTs due to an incident when I was younger. I didn't go into a huge amount with it, but let's just say I was taught to respect electricity at a young age. Electricity, much like the sea, you are insignificant as all hell to the sea and electricity. You know, when you're working on a CRT and you hear that crack as power starts going through it as some bastard plugs it in, that gets the heart rate going. But yeah, it was the first one I ever worked on, and it wasn't a standard setup, and I managed to get it working. I'm hoping, because I like that cabinet, I had to completely redo all the controls and stuff on as well, because the Virtual Striker wasn't buttons, I don't think. I think it might have been was it a trackball? I seem to have this thing about picking up like trackball cabs and weird control scheme cabs. The guy had tried to make like this really cheap Chinesey, like based on Chinese parts layout, and it was just terrible, because he was using like, I can't even remember what the kind of stick was. Back in the old vlogs, I did a big series about these things and like trying all the different kinds of sticks. Like, do you go for, you know, Hap? Do you go Sanwa? Do you go like all these? What's the other one, man? Not Sanwa, not Hap. Oh, mate, what is it called? My brain begins with S. It's not Sanwa. I just said Sanwa. Saimetsu. Why was Saimetsu so hard? There's another one in there. IL. It's basically Hap, but not. Hap is now the cheaper one, but it was a standard. And then something like something. I'm going to say something like Lorenzo or whatever. I don't know, but the guy had put in a bunch of cheap knockoffs of Saimetsu parts. So I ended up putting in the end, I tried some of the cheaper ones as well, and the diagonals just wore out in a heartbeat if you were playing stuff like Street Fighter and that. So we ended up re-drilling, or I did a whole new panel and put in roughly the places for Saimetsu and Hap stuff in it. Anyway, so the whole thing basically had to be gutted and turned into what I wanted it to be, kind of thing. So that's why it looks terrible. That and the guy marker penned the side of it for some reason. I don't know why, but it was just like, that looks terrible. At some point I will respray it, but I can't be bothered. So either way, this whole thing had to be gutted, redone. But it wasn't. It wasn't a standard setup at all. I'm hoping the issue with the screen is just sync. But ain't sync at the front of the thing. I'm just like, how could? Because I pulled a bunch of stuff out of the back of the cabinet. When it had been moved, apparently the back of it was being used for storage or whatever. I'm like, oh my god. I'm hoping that it is just sync, but I can't quite get my head around how that would have been knocked if it's where I remember it being. But it's been so long, like 2019 or so, since I've looked at it, that I don't remember how to change it. I do remember though, one of the parts that I have to stick an Allen key into and twist. Make sure that's either plastic or I'm wearing gloves. Because one of the adjustments, you can make a few fine adjustments on the front, but there's a hole that you have to push into and twist. But that gets really damn hot, so if you're using metal bits, I ended up burning away my fingerprints. When I put it in the thing, did the twist, I was like, no big deal, did the twist, left it, looked, went to do it, grab it again, and I was like, you motherfucker. I don't know though, I'm sure some brain box will be able to go, that's fucked. And I'll be like, damn it, because I don't understand how anything could have happened to it since it's been moved, unless one of the connections to the harness has gone as well or whatever. I don't know. It's been so long since I looked at it, and I'd have to try and figure out what kind of monitor was in it before, because it's not a 15K monitor. It's like medium's like 25, and VGA something like 30. And most people, I imagine the previous guy was trying to do was go from VGA down to the normal one, because normal being 15, half of VGA. So what a lot of people used to do with AMD graphics, they'd install a mod on the graphics card to allow it to drive arcade monitors, because the monitor that was in the cab wasn't standard. So that would probably explain partly why it was such a gaff job. But anyway. I'll figure out the puzzle. That's another puzzle to play with, and I do like that kind of stuff. But speaking of puzzles, and I said how if the details of the Virtual Striker cab would have probably made things easier for me rather than having to go through and dissect the board and all that kind of stuff. Yesterday, I mentioned that I was probably being a nuggie and overlooking something to do with the colour profile. So I said earlier on, the colours on Windows looked fine. And I said yesterday, I'm probably just overlooking something really simple. I'm just really tired, I'm just not thinking things through. Figured it out. It was really simple. I started looking at EDID data. I went completely to the other end of advanced. External display identification data. It's metadata for your displays, like over HDMI or DisplayPort, whatever. If you ever wondered how if you plug a graphics card into a telly or whatever, if you've ever wondered where it's getting some of that data from, like how does it know what reses it will do and all that, it's metadata basically telling another device the capabilities of the display, resolution, support frame rates, that kind of stuff, right? I was like, if I get hold of the EDID profiles, I could probably... No, it was way more simple than that. Because I completely overlooked something because, one, I'm a dickhead. Two, it was just too obvious to be a problem because it's never been a problem before. I will show you, but on Linux, every single display has a color profile on it, applied to it. And usually they are solid, they are sound, they look the good, they're fine. You don't need to fiddle with them, they're fine. In this case, no. Oh, it's always the simple things. Right. On Linux, there's this beautiful section, at least on GNOME. Color, spelled correctly. And right now you'll see I've got my Aorus CV27F, it's my main monitor, and the HD60X, which is the capture card I'm running into. They are both going directly into the same monitor. So the Aorus is the main monitor, the HD60X is just going into an HDMI port on the Aorus. So realistically, the color should be the same, normal, fine, no problem. However, the weird tinge I was complaining about the other day, right, just disable the color profile, log out, the color's already changed, so log back in, there you go, now come on, color, we can spell, look, it's the right color, it's normal, it's not. those have never, ever, ever been an issue before. It was so simple, so obvious. I just looked at it and went, nah. They're on by default. It's normally okay. It's normally okay. It's got to be something way more complicated. No. It was just a Linux color profile screwing with absolutely the everything. Things like this can just literally be, it doesn't have to be anything super hardcore. It could be a duffer cable. It could be, a dodgy connection, a dodgy color profile. Just one setting can throw everything out. And it's just, like I say, things that would have normally worked before, just other times they just don't work nice. They don't play nice. So, all the puzzles. And actually, I kind of understand, contrary to what I said earlier, I haven't gone super dumbed down on the last bits that I've been talking about. Well, at least I don't think I have. I mean, I'm starting to run on fizz again. The energy I got from a good night's sleep didn't last long, because apparently it wasn't a good night's sleep. It was only 6 hours, but 6 is still better than normal. But, oh, mate, and I don't actually know, I can't remember if that was the first CRT I'd worked on. I think that one of the first CRTs I worked on was one of the ones in the other Golden Tee cabs, but and I fiddled around with CRTs when I was a kid too, but like not to the extent of getting in there and taking bits out and stuff like that. But I've had fun because I have actually done the super simplified tutorial thing today, because I was talking to my mum. And I was explaining to her about resolution of monitors. It's not about the size of the screen, it's the resolution of the screen and how that works. And how when I'm downloading something, if someone else watches like stuff on the Netflix or whatever, it actually affects the internet connection around the house. It's not the internet, it's just having to be, it's not that your internet connection is slow, it's just there's so many more devices in the internet fighting for that bandwidth, and explaining what that is and how it works. And I said, look, I started downloading something on Steam, and I said, now launch something on Netflix or YouTube and just watch as that number that's capped my internet connection, watch as that drops, because the available amount of data going to it is less, because you're now taking some of it. It's like a glass or a cake. You can only have as much as is available to you, kind of thing. That didn't make any sense either, but oh mate. Just the fun of dicking around with arcade cabs and all that kind of stuff. Back in the day, I did the explanations of that stuff. But I'm now going to head off. So tired. Stupid colour profiles. The devil's in the details, and you just, sometimes you just overlook shit. Check everything, no matter how unlikely it is, just check the fucking thing. So I hope you're well. I'll see you all with a bit of luck in the next one. I don't know anymore.